Welcome back to another video on the channel. So we are down to the final two in the men's 2021 US Open. Number 1, Novak Djokovic. Number 2, Daniil Medvedev. Promises to be a fantastic final. So Novak Djokovic's bid to complete the calendar Grand Slam goes one step further. 27 down, 1 to go for him in what's been an extraordinary 2021. Daniil Medvedev obviously reaching his 3rd Grand Slam final, yet to win one of his first 2. This will be a repeat of the 2021 Australian Open final that we got in February. I think, the two players in the final are the ones that deserve to be there. Djokovic has come through a slightly tougher draw in my opinion than Medvedev, coming past Matteo Berrettini and Alexander Zverev. Medvedev's had a very favourable draw due to the exit of Stefanos Tsitsipas and Andrei Rublev early, but he can only beat what's in front of him. I think he's played some outstandingly good tennis and fully deserves his place in Sunday's final. So I'm not going to delve too much into the semi-finals of both of these players, otherwise I could be here all day. Starting off with Medvedev, just going to quickly talk about that. I think Felix auger-aliassime is a future very, very good player, but last night you could see he was lacking that experience and maturity in the big moments. He was very, very competitive for the opening set. Threw in a bad game around 4-4 and allowed Medvedev to break, and with the serving rhythm that Medvedev's got, the way he's moving inside the court, open up on the ground strokes, he was in full of confidence and great for last night. Medvedev, I was very impressed. In the second set, it's a one that Felix auger-aliassime really should have won. When he lost that from 5-2 up, the writing was on the wall. He was never really going to mentally recover from that position. But credit to Medvedev, although he has had a very favourable draw and he hasn't faced much adversity, Medvedev played his best tennis last night from 5-2 down that second set, which is good signs for him going on in the tournament. And Medvedev wrapped up a simple 3-set win in the third set. And as I say, Aliassime was competitive throughout, but didn't quite produce his best tennis in the big moments. Made 2 million forced errors. He just can't afford to do that against Medvedev in the form he's in. Djokovic's semi-final against Zverev was a special match, 5-set thriller. A repeat of the Tokyo Olympics semi-final, which Zverev edged in 3 sets, so it was always going to be a tough one. Zverev, I think, is getting closer and closer to winning the Grand Slam. The consistent ground strokes. I thought he actually edged Djokovic last night in the longer exchanges, but Djokovic's ability to execute when moving inside the court, the drop shot worked well last night, the serve and volley when under pressure. The return of serve from the second set onwards in particular was very, very strong and put pressure on Zverev, forced him to go big on the second serve a number of times in double fault. And yeah, it was a thriller match, some crazy rallies, which included, one of the best games I've ever seen at 5-4, and that third set was quite incredible, the 53 shot rally, then Djokovic recovering to play out a fantastic point to go 2-1 in front. Credit to Zverev as well. Djokovic is on a 26 match winning streak going into that one in Grand Slams, and many players after losing that third set could have given up and just said, Novak Djokovic is the best Grand Slam player in the world at the moment by a stretch. I'm not going to win 2 consecutive sets, but the way Zverev regrouped, fought back in that 4th set and deservedly took it, was a credit to himself. Unfortunately for him, he couldn't sustain the level, and Djokovic won the 5th very, very comfortably, which is good for his body. But yeah, Djokovic rolls on to another Grand Slam final, whereas Zverev, he's getting closer. He's still only 24 years old, and I think he will win Grand Slams down the line. He's too consistently good. It's too big of a ball. Got a fantastic serve. He just got defeated narrowly by, one of the greatest of all time last night. So now, talking finally about the final. I'm going to have a look at the positives of these two, what I think they can bring to the court, and then also analyse where I think the game will be won or lost, and finally give my predictions. So some positives for Daniil Medvedev. He's played Djokovic over 5 sets this year. It obviously didn't go well for him at all in Australia, losing in straight sets. But he will be able to analyse that performance, learn, adapt, look where he went wrong. The problem with that is that Djokovic has 0 flaws in his game at the moment. There's nothing really there that's attackable, and that's letting him down. I think the forehand last night at Djokovic did go AWOL for a number of times, in particularly the first and 4 sets. Djokovic's forehand just wasn't quite there, wasn't in the quite right rhythm. Was guilty of under-hitting the ball and netting a few times, then over-hitting the ball and going long. So maybe Medvedev in the tight moments can target that Djokovic forehand, but on the whole in 2021, it's been incredible. You know, at Wimbledon it was faultless. I'd expect Djokovic's forehand to get a lot of work in the time between now and the final and be a lot better in the final than what it was in the semis, but it had an off day. I'm not really sure what Medvedev can do differently to what he did in the Australian Open. He doesn't have too much variety in his game. I think he just needs to execute better and hope Djokovic doesn't perform as well as he did, which could happen. You know, Djokovic has had a very, very long 2021. He spent a lot more time on court in this tournament than what Medvedev has. But, you know, Djokovic in a final very, very rarely struggles for fitness. Medvedev has also not faced any acid tests yet, and that's good in the sense that he'll be physically and mentally fresh. And he did play, as I said, outstanding tennis from 2-5 down in set 2 against Felix yesterday when facing arguably his first adversity of the tournament. But he hasn't really got the trenches yet or faced anyone that's anywhere near as good as Djokovic. And he'll have to be ready from ball one. You know, if he gives Djokovic an early lead and gives Djokovic the first set, Djokovic will just grow confident and is a superb front runner in finals, as we've seen so far in 2021. And the fact that Djokovic has lost the opening sets against Matteo Berrettini and Alexander Zverev, yet still came through. If Djokovic is to win the opening set, then you know it's going to be very, very tough for someone to beat him 3 and 4, because Djokovic seems to get better and better as the match progresses. Positives for Novak Djokovic is that history is in sight, and there's a few pundits have said that, you know, Djokovic might crumble under the pressure and he doesn't want to talk about becoming the greatest of all time and completing the calendar Grand Slam. But I can't understand how anyone is saying it's a negative to have a calendar Grand Slam for Djokovic on his mind. I think it's just added motivation. You know, this is a man that's talked for years about becoming the greatest of all time, recovered from some hopeless positions, match points down in Grand Slam finals in the very biggest stages against the crowd, against the Federer, to win, and you know, won 27 Grand Slam matches in a row in 2021, so his confidence is going to be sky high. You know, he beat Daniel Medvedev very, very comfortably in Australia. I'm sure Djokovic should be confident of reproducing a similar performance and doing it again. Djokovic is the strongest player of all time mentally. He's just a mental giant, and if Djokovic was to lose on Sunday, I think it'll be all Medvedev's doing, and he'd deserve all the credit in the world, and it wouldn't be down to Djokovic suffering under pressure. This Zverev match, I think, is a massive positive for Djokovic as well. You know, he's played a top opponent now. He's almost played Djokovic into top form. Djokovic had to produce some of his absolute best tennis yesterday in that third set at 5-4. In the fifth set when he ran away with it to lead 5-love. That's as good as Djokovic has played in the entirety of 2021, in my opinion. He won a fifth set decider as well. He knows his legs are there. He knows he's mentally strong. He's able to produce his best if it was to go in the fifth set. And as I said, he's just stayed mentally strong throughout that match. Perfect preparation for a final, in my opinion. Now, in terms of the match, I think Daniel Medvedev is the second best Grand Slam player, ahead of Zverev, in my opinion, in best of 5, due to his style being easy to execute. You know, it's a game that's built on defence, counter-punching, making that consistent depth, high percentage shots, whereas Zverev's game is slightly risky. You know, in the big moments, he does want to go and win the big points with backhands down the line or forehands cross court. They are very fine margin shots, whereas Medvedev, as I say, plays more high percentage shots. With Zverev, he can either blow opponents off the court or unravel very, very quickly. It's that risky game that he possesses. Couple his tendency to hit double faults and forehand errors in big moments, then I think consistency wise, you know, over best of 5, you'd have to make Medvedev slightly ahead of Zverev, in my opinion. So Medvedev's key ways of winning points, you know, aces, unreturned first serves or short balls from returns. You don't get that very often from Djokovic, particularly after the opening set, and I think that's what a lot of players struggle to do with physically and mentally. You know, even for players like Zverev and Berrettini, they're used to getting, you know, maybe 40 or 50 unreturned first serves in a best of 5 set match. With that, against Djokovic, you just don't get it. You know, he makes you play so many more extra balls. He piles the pressure on your second serve due to his returning ability. And with Djokovic, you know, if he can nail a few return winners, it immediately puts doubt in your serve, and you know, you're wondering, is it becoming a negative rather than a positive due to Djokovic's return ability? You know, it's going to be slapped back on the baseline, and Djokovic is going to be up on the baseline straight away looking to dictate the rally. So I think it's a massive mental shift more than anything when you're serving against Djokovic, because the level of his returning is just on a different planet to everybody else's. So it's coping with that almost pressure of Djokovic physically and mentally on the court, knowing he's on the other side returning your serve. Medvedev's also his key ways of winning points, his counter punching, his defence, his forcing errors by making the opponents play extra shots and exposing the poor net play, something that I felt he's done throughout this tournament. Djokovic's ability to come forward and finish points quickly has improved, so much over the last 2 or 3 years. Djokovic's game was built a little bit like Medvedev's in his late 20s, but over the last few years he's really improved his serve. He likes to keep the points shorter now. You could say that last night as well. I thought Zverev dominated the long exchanges. I think Medvedev would dominate the long exchanges, but Djokovic doesn't fall into that trap anymore. He knows he needs to finish points quickly. He knows he's brilliant at the net now. I think he won 32 out of 36 net play points last night. Serving volleyed very well, so he won't be looking to keep Medvedev back behind. He'll be looking to keep Medvedev back behind the baseline, but Djokovic won't be looking to play passive and get into 30-40 shot rallies, because I think Medvedev would have the edge in those. Djokovic will be in his prime position, inside the baseline after a couple of shots and majority of points, and that's where he's at his lethal best. His variety, the confidence, the conviction, accuracy and net play is simply too good in my opinion for any player in the world at the moment, the level that he's at. Yes, Daniel Medvedev is an incredible defender. He tries to maintain depth, he forces opponents backwards, but Djokovic will not miss consistently coming in. His accuracy, I think, will break down Medvedev. It's just relentless ball striking that just keeps coming and coming and coming. Aliassime last night, he came inside the court, particularly that opening set, and he had one game where he missed 3 or 4 hands, I think, wide. Djokovic very, very rarely does that. Djokovic paints the lines consistently, is brilliant at hitting around the net, and I'm not sure Medvedev's defence will be enough to stop Djokovic, and I'm not sure he'll be able to force enough errors. I think overall in the matchup, best of 5 especially, Djokovic's attack will break down Medvedev's defence more often than not. Against any other single player in the world, Medvedev forces enough errors. He hits incredible passing shots against players that don't cover the net well enough, and gets lots of free points on serve. And I just can't see him doing that against Djokovic in the form that he's in. The key to beating Novak Djokovic, I think personally, is forcing him backwards with pace. Berrettini tried that, but just didn't quite have a good enough double-handed backhand to push Djokovic back and keep him on the run. Zverev can do it in spells. We saw that last night. Zverev's a massive consistent ball striker. He did break down Djokovic's defence and force him backwards and force him into mistakes. He has a huge weight of shot, and the backhand down the line is a big weapon. Tsitsipas has done it twice even. Tsitsipas I think is a bad matchup for Djokovic. We've seen twice at the French Open where he's won 2 consecutive sets playing lights out tennis, big serve and big return and stepping inside the court, forcing Djokovic backwards, getting on the front foot, dominating him with first strike tennis, and I think that's the only way really you can beat Novak Djokovic, whereas Medvedev doesn't really have that style of tennis in him, or we certainly haven't seen it so far in his career. I don't think personally Medvedev's good or confident enough to come forward and finish points early consistently. I have talked about in this tournament, I do think he's improving on that front, particularly on hard courts. He is trying to come inside the court more, he is trying to shorten points and improve his net play and add variety to his game, but I'm just not sure it's quite at the level yet to do it against Djokovic and win a best of 5 set match, particularly in a final. And as I mentioned, he won't have the gift of 3 points from first serve. He's got a fantastic rhythm, and I'm sure he will hit aces and a return serve throughout, but not at the amount that he gets against opponents will he get against Novak Djokovic due to his quality of returning. Djokovic will be the first to commit in this final in points. He wants to gain the upper hand in rallies. With his current level of ball striking, his offence will win against Medvedev's defence more often than not. And finally, I think if we have tie breaks, Djokovic can really step it up and win points. He can really execute the serve and volley, the drop shot. He can fire backhands down the line, forehands cross court. He can switch it up and defend from the baseline and win 30-40 shot rallies if required. Can Medvedev have that variety and really come out and dominate and win a tie break? I'm not so sure against Novak Djokovic personally. Finally, it has energy sapping physically and mentally to be camped behind the baseline consistently. You know, fighting for balls, running from side to side, stretching for balls. I just think Novak Djokovic will wear him down with his aggressive style. You know, I'm not trying to discredit Daniil Medvedev at all. You know, I think he's the second best player in the world. I think he's a future Grand Slam champion. He's an amazing hardcore player. And I think Medvedev's been in brilliant form in this US Open. And if he was up against anybody else in the world, even Zverev, I do think he'd have won this final. But Novak Djokovic in 2021 is just defied belief. You know, 27 Grand Slam wins. He's in unbelievable confidence. He beat Medvedev in Australian Open earlier this year in straight sets. He'd be confident of repeating that performance again. He's just playing hardcore tennis how it should be played, serving and returning impeccably well, stepping inside the court, and the fact that he's got every single shot nailed to a tee, the backhands, the forehands, the net play, the serve and volley, everything about Novak Djokovic's game at the moment just says calendar Grand Slam champion. He deserves to achieve that feat and get the 21 Grand Slams, and I think if he produces somewhere near his best on Sunday, then he will defeat Daniil Medvedev again. In terms of prediction, I'm going to go with a straight sets win, and I did thinking about giving Medvedev the first set because Djokovic has lost, you know, the first set 3 or 4 times this tournament, but I just think the fact that Medvedev hasn't played a real top 5 opponent yet, you might get surprised and overawed by Djokovic's quality early on. I might take Medvedev a good 4 or 5 games or 30-40 minutes to get to Djokovic's level. By that point, Djokovic might have already made a fast start in the final and secured the opening set. And I think of Djokovic, you know, he's a fantastic front runner in finals, and I think, you know, doubts could enter Medvedev's mind straight away if he was to lose the Open and think, you know, is this just a repeat of the Australian Open final? How do I beat this guy? And as I mentioned throughout the video, I'm just not quite sure Medvedev has the ability to problem solve and variety, and he hasn't got enough variety in his game to switch it up and turn the tables and momentum against Novak Djokovic. So I'm going to go with Djokovic to complete the calendar Grand Slam and win his 4th of 2021 in straight sets. So thanks to you for watching another video. If you have your own predictions for the final, do leave them in the comment section below. I do always enjoy reading those. I've had a few new subscribers as well during the US Open, so if you are a new subscriber, thank you. And if you are watching, please do subscribe, leave a like on the video, and I will see you on the next one.